Yeah. Are we ready to go? I'm sorry, didn't mean to ask. We're ready? All right, good. I'd like to call to order this business meeting of February 18th, 2020, District 116. Roll call, please.
Member Carter.
Here.
Member Exum.
Here.
Member Patton. Here. Member Pulaski.
Here.
Member Fisher is here, and President Nemeth.
Here. Do we have any additions, corrections, modifications this evening to the agenda? Any board members, any modifications? Hearing none. We move forward. We have citizen statements this evening. We have one person who wishes to speak to us, Al Strickland. Al, it's your first time here. We have 5-minute limits.
Okay, great. Yeah, Al Strickland here, and I recently hired a substitute teacher here in District 116. And just a few concerns for me as a new person to the area. I've been recently relocated to the area for about a year now and started subbing at the high school and the junior high. However, I just wanted to know what was the board's view on the current, what I see as a crisis, because I've been in the school right now for about a month, so I know everything. But what is the school district's plan to eliminate hoodies, cell phones, earbuds, because it's a definite distraction to the learning environment. And from my experience thus far, there seems to be very little accountability for misbehavior. Today I experienced a kid that literally cursed me as a sailor, basically. And I called the resource officer, and he negotiated with the kid. There's no negotiation. I wanted him out of the class because he's being very disruptive. But I feel that the children, junior high and high school alike, they have picked up some of those bad behaviors and they bring them on, but cursing, profanity, I mean, it's just like and I've challenged the kids to increase their vocabulary, but not using profanity. And so I'm not trying to be a disruptor at all, but these are problems that I've seen already, and it makes it uncomfortable. I'm not sure if there's a major challenge retaining substitute teachers for this area, but I could see why it could be a problem, and that's really unfortunate. But I just feel that we need to really, and I say we because I'm now actively involved into the school district, and if I'm in here and my tax dollars go there, there should be some accountability. I don't personally see a need for cell phones in the classroom. You guys, we have the tablets for that. So nevertheless, I just wanted to express that as concern. My background, my wife's been in teaching for nearly 30 years. And so I was able to come up with my children going to school, and I've seen different things. Texas, South Carolina, you know, they had uniforms for the junior high that alleviated a lot of the problems. South Carolina, here recently, we were there, and I believe it was 2008, 2009. If the kid used profanity, the first time it was a referral. The second time, the police resource officer, it was a misdemeanor offense. And I tell you what, the time that I was there, I heard very little profanity. I saw other things, but I just think we need to enforce it. It's not too soon to begin to say it right now in the communications that next year we will not tolerate cell phones in the classroom or hoodies. And I would challenge any of the board members, I don't know of y'all, but come spend a day in the classroom environment, because most of them would not know you. And you know the old thing that says job switcheroo or whatever? Just go in there and see and get a first-hand feel. I challenge anyone, if you can make it through a week of the junior high or the high school without any kids using profanity or doing things that are out of the way, I would be shocked. So please take that into consideration. Again, my name's Al Strickland. Anything that I can do to make it better, I'm willing to do it, but I'm concerned, and I'm also very fortunate and happy to be working as a sub in the school district, but those are just my concerns. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If anyone else wishes to address the board this evening, please fill out a goldenrod sheet and give it to our recording secretary. And while we're waiting to see if anyone wishes to do that, I'd like to recognize Aaron Lebansky and Jason Liggett in running the camera for us tonight. So thank you, so the folks at home can see. Anyone else wish to address the board this evening? Anyone else wish to address the board? Anyone else wish to address the board? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move forward. We do have a call for an exec session this evening to talk about litigation or pending litigation. We'll read the full thing when we get to that point, and also a real property. So I believe those are the two items this evening. Motion to approve the agenda would then therefore be in order.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. And I meant to announce that Ann is ill tonight, and that's why she's not here this evening. So Next up on our agenda is commendations and recognitions. Do you want to do those? Okay. Well, the following Urbana High School students will be recognized for the recent successes by being selected and participating in the ILMEA Music Education Association All-State Honors. In the All-State Band is Willem Aline, All-State Honors Band, Andrew Micuso, Sanjana Paul, Olivia Rosenstein, and Alex Schaefer. And in the All-State Honors Jazz Band, Max Ando, All-State Orchestra, Masato Keeley and Zach Menard, All-State Honors Orchestra, Owen Robinson, and the following participated in composition, Alyssa Allen, Dimitri Glaros, and Samuel Larson. And we'd also very much like to recognize Olivia Rosenstein this evening. She's been named a National Merit Scholarship finalist. And she's one of 15,000 students across the country, out of 1 million students who took the PSAT and is eligible to be considered for selection from 7,500 scholarship winners that will be determined in March. So good for, yes, good for Olivia. And good for those other students. We have no public hearings this evening. We have no communications. We're prepared for administrative reports. So school resource officer update.
More of an introduction. I'm going to invite Chief Serafin and our new school resource officer for the high school, Chad Burnett, up to the mic. I know the chief has some remarks. I just want to say, I know Dr. Berenson is here in the audience, so we're really excited to have Chad after a pretty involved team interview. He was our choice, so I'll let the chief kind of expound on that.
Sure. Before I get to that, about 2 months ago, we moved forward with this whole process, and I wanted to give you just a quick update on a couple of things that were more, I guess, sort of how things have progressed. Several have asked, and yes, we have taken receipt of 2 new squad cars, and we have graphics designs, and I think ultimately, I know that several staffers have seen it. I think you'll be very pleased when we get that, when we roll those out. There'll be a sense of ownership, I think, when it comes to those sorts of things. The National Association of School Resource Officers, SRO Basic School, we stumbled into one nearby in Indianapolis the first week of February. And we had been planning to send the new SRO for the high school, and as we looked out through the training calendar, we thought there was no better time than the present. So Officer Robinson, who you all have met, they both went to school that same first week. So we were able to check both of those boxes right away to get their basic training done. So that wasn't necessarily, we didn't think we'd quite get it done that quickly, but we were fortunate. If you haven't, go online and look for the WCIA story from late last week on Officer Robinson and her interaction and time so far at the middle school. I think you'll appreciate what you see there. And yes, as Dr. Avery Tatum has said, right after we met, we had holidays. And during the holiday time, we had open time for officers to request to be selected. Shortly after the holidays, there was scheduling, and there was a selection process with, I believe, last I heard, 13 subjects from the school, representing school interests in various ways. And Officer Chad Burnett was selected through the course of that process. He's been reallocated, like I said, from our patrol division, went to SRO school, and is in the middle of his second week at the Urbana High School. I will only tell you he's been around us since March of 2009, and now, Chad, this is where I hand the mic over to you, and you can tell him a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Chad Burnett, like you said. I've been a patrol officer for 11 years. Been an FTO for a short period of time here, which is a field training officer with the police department. Recently took on this position as the SRO. A little about myself. I'm from a small town south of here, Villa Grove originally. That's the community I grew up in. My parents were both school teachers and retired as school teachers from that school district. Outside of graduating college, I taught school, taught 4th grade for 2 years, and then I taught 2 years in the Champaign County Juvenile Detention Center here in Champaign County, obviously. And then I moved on, did some other things, and got into the police world. So that brings me here today. So far, I'm excited for the opportunity to be in the school. It presents some challenges, of course. I think we all know that, but I'm ready to try to tackle those and see what we can do to communicate and work through some things and make it a good deal, safe environment for everybody. Looking forward to it.
Now, he's got something that he's going to hold up and show you. This is one of our prototypes of sort of, so if you, yeah, you can stand up, I suppose.
right,
This
sure.
this is the clothing,
These-
if you will.
The pants and the shoes will be different. I do a lot of walking in the shoes, so I'm not going to wear these boots. I'm going to wear more like Trek type shoes, so they'll be different. I've been wearing these types of polos. We just got this lettered with the badge and my name on the front, and then it's also going to have Reed Police on the back. So it's a softer uniform than their everyday patrol uniform, but I will wear a modified utility belt. This today is just a badge of gun, obviously, but it's not going to have every tool that I would have on the street on it. It's a modified belt as well. So that's what I'll wear every day in the school. I just want to share the shirt with you.
Yeah, they look great. Thanks for bringing it.
And you also coached quite a bit too, right?
I did. I've coached middle school track. I've coached middle school basketball while I was teaching. My sons are all my son is active in baseball, so I've coached baseball on the side for travel leagues. My daughters are volleyball players. I have three teenagers, 19, 17, and 15, so familiar with the age and the social activities and social media and all of that. So I think I'm a good fit for where I'm at.
Great, well, thank you. We're excited.
Anything else?
Thank you.
We're excited to have you.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Anything else?
When was your first day? Have you already been on the job over in the school?
Yeah, I've been in the school. I was in the school all last week and then this week as well. So I went to the basic SRO class in Indianapolis the week before. So basically a week and a half I've been there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Our next administrative report is the UMS UHS land campus land use study. So we have a UHS grad with us this evening to help present. Corey?
I'm gonna let him do all the talking.
So you guys have seen this presentation once, and Corey and Craig have met in our small group facilities team, and we had another phone conference. So we've done some tweaking to the original proposal that you've seen. We have some numbers, some budget, potential preliminary budget numbers there too. So we're gonna just let them present, and is it okay if we ask questions as you go?
By all means.
And then we'll have some discussion at the end.
And the phasing. I
And the
think that's
phasing,
yes,
yes,
phasing.
that's a big piece.
Yeah, so we have, so last time we met, I believe we showed you a video of the fly-through, of the walkthrough of the whole campus as a completion. So from that, we took all your comments, and we provided, for lack of a better term, a menu of options and several phases that can be provided as this. So with that, no further ado, I'll just continue on. Maybe. Just- Okay.
There you go.
I can figure it out. I know how to use a computer. So this is what you see today on site, obviously. No further, this is what it's looked like for the last 10, 15, several years. Yeah, there were some additions, Quack Center, some other additions to the middle school, various other additions. But this, the site traffic has remained relatively unchanged in the last several years. Oops. Page down. So this is your overall menu. Everything that we've talked about over the last several months, probably since about May of last year, all of our meetings with the students, with the community groups, with you, with leadership team, administration, we've developed these several options here. So the potential phasing on the North Campus, those are arranged in such a way that you would do item 1 before you continue on. Items 2A through 2F, those are numbered such a way that those can be interchanged and provided as you desire. Items 3 and 4, baseball and softball, those are additional spaces that could be completed after the previous options have been provided or completed. The individual options, those are items 1 through 5 that can be provided pretty much whenever you need it. You don't have to do something else before you do these, or again, you could do these before anything else happens. And I'll explain those as we continue on. So, to get this project started, main thing would be the main vehicular access onto the site. So one of the main things was street alignment. So from the west to the east, you can see the street aligning with Iowa on the west, and you'll see a bus loop on the south of it, and vehicular traffic, student drop-off, parent drop-off on the north side. That continues along a partial roundabout, and then continues down to the north side of the middle school, and then aligns with Fairlawn Drive on the east. So what it does is also allows additional parking where the student lot is now gravel, and extends that in pavement. So with this, we are losing some spaces, but we are also gaining some spaces. What you'll see are a count of that, and where we see restricted, those are more or less temporary parking when bus loading is not during your bus pickups or your drop-offs. So it could be for temporary parking during the day, for itinerants, or for loading zones or things like that. You see on the right the costs associated with this. These are obviously conservative estimates at this time, and we can, as these options get further developed, we'll further develop the estimates as well.
One thing to kind of note on this is, if you remember, one of the important things about kind of master plans is the steps you go through, right? And I'm telling you just as a reminder as you're looking at these. So one of the things that kind of strikes you when you look at this is the road looks a little weird as it's kind of looping through the property. Mm-hmm. That's because it's fitting in and around everything that we're recommending come later. So that's why it's kind of making the funny loops. That's why we're also pointing out, like, we're kind of truncating the baseball field a little bit, so you're kind of aware of some of the impacts short term that you might be dealing with as you develop and work your way through these options.
Corey, before we leave that page, you said we're losing some parking and we're gaining some, but what's the net change
So the net change for this is, let's see.
in parking?
Yeah,
Oh,
go
sorry
this
about
way,
that.
and I got my own now.
There we go.
So much for you.
Yeah.
So overall, for permanent parking, you're losing 5 spaces.
Overall,
with this
okay.
one.
A loss of 5, okay.
For permanent.
Yes.
For
And then we're,
permanent.
right.
Then we're adding the couple of what we've been calling restricted zones. So over both of those, we're adding about 22 of those. But again, now these are not exact numbers.
Mhm.
They got to be plus or minus a couple here and there.
So
It's-
loss of 5 in the permanent parking and an addition of 22 in the, what was the distinction you made?
Temporary parking.
Temporary parking,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
think of it as like when the buses aren't there, it's drop off, it's someone bringing something for their kid during the day,
Oh.
you know, those sorts of things. It's
Gotcha.
not a long-term parking need because they need to be out of the way when the buses come.
Gotcha. All right,
So-
thank you.
Or even short-term visitor parking,
Or short-term
Yes.
visitor
Oh.
parking.
which will allow
So
you to
that kind-
replace the
okay.
visitor parking that's being lost on the north side of the building.
Right.
Okay.
And how many handicap parking spaces do we have to have? Isn't there for X amount we,
Yes, there is a 5% for the total load. We need handicap parking spaces. Those are the details that have not yet been developed for this. So these are overall spaces for that.
Okay.
term.
All right, thanks.
Does this close off what's right there on the north side of the building right now? So right now you have some visitor parking, it's kind of the current drop-off. With this, I can't tell,
So the
looking at the
current-
original and then looking at this one, what's happening with that? Is that,
So the spaces as Iowa is currently now on the north side of I believe it's still the family and friends parking area.
right?
So those angled spaces, those do get removed, and that is part of the the quote-unquote lose 10. But the area where the family and friends parking, that stays as is.
Oh, so that's
there will
there
be
still,
some
okay.
turnout, say you can kind of see on that third bus from the right, that turnout will still be located there. So that whole area in Tiger Lane remains relatively unchanged.
Okay, thanks.
For now.
Okay.
A little drama.
So the next logical phase would be to complete the parking on the north side of the high school. And what you'll see here is the roundabout gets completed, and the realignment to Broadway to the north is more evident here. And we also added a curb cut to the north where Race Street is an alignment. So we have an in and out directly to the west of the main parking that is aligned with Race Street. And then that connects to the student parent drop off on the main Serpentine Road area. And we have a separate area for visitors, one big conglomerate of staff, visitors, parking, you name it, it's there. So there's what you'll see is a sidewalk kind of about 2/3 way to the north, and that is separating the student from the staff parking area. That can be moved up north or moved south depending on how many spaces we'd like to would be reserved for student parking. So, and those numbers right there showing 114 staff, 15 restricted, that is still within the bus loop area, and then 78 student. But that 114 versus 78, that could be added, taken away conversely. So continuing on, this is where that friends and family parking does get completely removed. And this is with the providing an entry presence at the door 1 for the high school. So last week we talked, we just had a canopy from it. After further discussions, we said, well, how do we really make this a secure entry, for lack of a better term? So there's plenty of area underneath it where we could build out a portion or even relocate the attendance office from near where the Tiger Lane is and provide that as an enclosed area. So that's what that diagram right in the middle shows. So during school arrival, students could have free reign into the building. During the rest of the days, they would have to check into that area directly to the right of that vestibule, and to be buzzed into the building, buzzed into that vestibule, buzzed back out to get into the remainder of the school.
No, that is, so door 1, yeah, he's talking about door 1. And it would look a little like, if you've been to Yankee Ridge, you come in the airlock, you go into the office, you can
Yes.
go freely into so you'd go freely into the attendance office, and then you come through the door where you'd have access to the rest of the building.
Correct. Yeah, because currently, right now, you just get buzzed into, then you have to walk several steps before you talk to some representative of the district. This way, you really do get a true secure entrance.
It's important to maintain your secure perimeter. So right now, the way you're buzzing people into the building, you're already letting them into the building. You're reactive at that point, not proactive. So that's the important on this. I mean, one of the reasons why we kind of prioritize the way we did is we're kind of fixing the drop-off, we're fixing the parking, and we're creating that layered approach of keeping the vehicular traffic away from the building so it gets more controlled as you get closer to the building.
So throughout bordering that the south end of that Serpentine Road, there would be several bollards at various intervals to stop traffic from getting through to the building side of it, and those would be lit as well. So it'd be more of a pedestrian thing, but also provide your safety as well.
Corey, does that 515,000, hard cost estimate, does that include building out the attendance office or?
That currently does not. That only includes the canopy and the, you can see kind of to the west of that canopy, there's some additional pavement areas, so more for student gatherings before and after drop off, and it removes all the parking, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that note, because we kind of realized in discussion with the meeting the other day, an opportunity here.
Sure.
So we just hadn't gotten to the point of updating that, but before we kind of finalize this and send it through, we'll make sure that's updated.
Okay, great.
Because there's a number of things to consider about that we didn't want to throw a number at it right now without full consideration.
Gotcha, thanks.
And it also includes covers for our bicycle. So
Yes, it does.
it's intended to encourage
Oh,
more
yes.
bicycle traffic.
Yeah, I see one of those examples on a couple other slides here, but pretty much all the bicycle covered areas will be similar throughout the campus.
When you get to this phase, how far away is your accessible parking? Is it in the lot as you see there, or is it off to the right where you haven't touched yet, or where?
Currently, in this phase, it is located within the Tiger Lane area.
Okay.
There are additional spaces that are directly in the north side of the lot, so it would be a significant travel path. We do understand that. There are options that we can as we further develop these, or if we even decide to proceed with these, we'd obviously have further discussions on where do we want this to occur. Does it want to occur to really the south where the bus is, or do you want to create a sort of a separate area for the accessible parking? So that is definitely one of the things that will be fully discussed before it comes into fruition.
Thanks.
So coming on the next, and these last couple could be kind of done, like the main entry could be done after this, and then the main parking would be done after this. We set it this way so you really never lose parking. You gain the parking before you take away some of the parking. So here you're losing several parking spaces, getting rid of Tiger Lane and making that an activity anti-space for your athletes to gather, for when they're going on their road trips, or for your clubs to gather, for your band to gather before they load up onto the buses. So these are various solar canopies, what we've been calling them, seating area, gathering. It gets rid of all the traffic away from the high school now. There is area to access service vehicles to get back in here, and also out of our discussions that we had last week, the potential to relocate the health center access directly to the north of the building. Therefore, both your middle school and your high school would have all your entries from the north side of the building as opposed to going to the nooks and crannies.
That's one thing I was going to ask Corey, was about the, during this time, when we start this, the health center, where will people be able to park for that? Will it be labeled specifically health center parking, or will they just have to still try to find somewhere?
So that'd be part of our wayfinding package as well, and we definitely indicate these are wherever the parking would be for a health center, these would be health center parking only.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah, no problem.
And could I ask about the solar tree? Are these, do you mean like as in solar panels? Will we get some benefit from the solar? And what benefit
Yes.
would we get from the solar tree canopies?
It could range from some, there's a number of things we could do. It can range from some light level kind of, I wouldn't say cost recovery, but you can bring in and power lighting either from under those in and of themselves. It could be anything from phone charging stations. That's what's happening at my kids' university, is that's where kids are kind of hanging out and charging their phones after school, or other devices. It's not a significant square footage, so that you wouldn't be like bringing it back into the building and trying to get your money out of, Ameren or whoever the electrical authority is down here. So, but it's a big part that we find with it is your ability to integrate it into an educational program. So, you can put displays and sensors that show how much energy is being provided at that particular time. When there's no clouds, you can see it dip, or when there's clouds, you can see it dip. That kind of thing of introducing it into your curriculum.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So 2D is the educational garden, which replaces what currently is out there. And this, since it is to the north of Serpentine Road, it would require demolition of the current residence that is there. So this is just one of the schematics that we provided. These would be permanent planters. I know the student, the FFA could monitor this as well. We can include it as part of the educational program that was charged to us to provide several areas. This is just one of the areas we provide for outdoor learning options.
And the thing we were talking about these, there's some opportunities that if you're doing, if you're doing option 1, you may want to look at option 2D as an alternate associated with that, because they're doing a lot of paving and a lot of work in that area, that you might be able to realize some kind of benefit from this kind of cost incorporated in that to make these even, affordable, or something that makes sense that you can do at that time, and kind of, because this also provides a bit of a neat kind of entry into this end of the campus.
And then here is where we've lovingly called it our shipping container outdoor storage area. So, it could be used for, obviously, shipping container is very cheap, cost effective. We could have outdoor seating in there. We can do your outdoor classroom. It is covered, it would be lit. There would be a permeable pavement underneath it, so it'd be very maintenance-free. Obviously, we do understand the fact that it is prime for being tagged, but it also could be something that we could have our student tag it first. So, this is, again, one of those opportunities that, being one of those outdoor learning activity areas that kind of gets away from the school, gets the students outdoors and gets some natural baking in the sunlight.
Question,
Sure.
real quick. Is this a total covered canopy?
So this uses
Type
one,
thing.
this current iteration uses one of the shipping containers
Yes.
as the roof structure. So kind of imagine putting two shipping containers side by side, and then another one spans like a bridge across the top of them. We're using that, so it's about, depending on the iteration, 8 to 10 feet of kind of covered area, because the shipping container goes over the top. This could change over time as you kind of further develop it, but that's what you're looking at here.
I'm just worried about some type of a climbing apparatus that would get people up on top, and we would not want that for safety reasons.
Sure, and that could definitely be one of those options that if something like this were to come to fruition, we would definitely work through those items to possibly remove any ways to access the roofs.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, the other thing this shows is a bit like a pergola element currently, but as Corey kind of said before, these are proof of concept ideas about what could go there. There's a lot more work that needs to happen to figure out its applicability or its interest, what's the value of it to you guys, and what are some of the hazards we might want to watch out for of climbing and that sort of stuff. Could someone climb on things? Yes, they could climb on just about anything, but you don't want to make it too easy, and we understand that.
Thank you.
Then lastly, in this first group of phasings would be kind of landscaping and providing a walkway pathway on the west side of the building. And one of the questions that were asked in our meeting over the phone last week is how many trees would we lose? And we actually would lose no trees, the way we've laid out these pathways. Yes, the artist's rendering is kind of a little off, but we still arrange these so we lose no trees. The main marquee sign on the west there, adjacent to Iowa Street, that would also have to be relocated, but that was for minor costs. And again, this would be all have lit pathways as well. And as you can kind of see, the grading really doesn't change too much, but the walkway, the pathway, and the benches kind of dig into the landscape slightly. So it does provide a nice little elevation for seating.
It gives a really kind of neat collegiate type feel, in my opinion, where you've got, these nice meandering pathways. I mean, part of the reason they're doing what they're doing is because they're working around the trees that you have, and all these kind of chance meeting spaces and the little kind of funny little circles that can kind of be impromptu educational spaces or intended educational spaces for when the weather's nice. So, it's really neat stuff going on.
I really appreciate how you broke this up into pieces, because we can add some of these later ones as add alternates to when we bid out
Absolutely.
the main road. So this
Yeah, you could literally take your main road part and do this, or you could say, we would look at it and say, oh, well, if we're already doing some compensatory drainage or storage for the parking lot, what happens if we lump some of this into that? And kind of realize some gains of just making that a little bit bigger. We don't have to do anything special later.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to have the ability to add some educational spaces at the same time we're building the road through it. So.
Right. Yeah.
And there's definitely part of these, we don't have to do all of this one, we can do just a portion of, like this one, maybe just do those areas where the outdoor educational stuff and do the ribbon at a later time.
Yeah.
And one thing you didn't say that we asked about last week is that the MTD cutouts stay on Ray Street.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I mean, like that drive that we're creating is not for MTD. So MTD would still pull into the cutout and
Yeah.
go along their way down Race like they do now.
Thank you, Jennifer, for clarifying, because that was one of my questions. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we talked about that.
You could actually perhaps add a little bit more since you're moving the Iowa Street north, back to
Right.
Iowa Street as it goes west from the
Right.
school.
Right.
And right now, they kind of all stagger in. I mean, they're never really there at the same time. They all kind of, there might be maybe two that pull in at once, but they do kind of really do pull in one or two at a time, yeah. So,
And maybe give them the option to stack a little more if they, if they.
Or
if
spread
their
out a
schedules
little
change,
bit.
so.
yeah, like for a big trip or something, if they need to pick
Exactly.
up like
Mhm.
all the freshmen to go to the museum or something like that, yeah.
Right.
And next couple options are kind of more larger ticket items as a north phasing comes. So this one is providing a full competition style baseball for the site. I know right now the competition baseball is off-site right now, and this cost is not insignificant, and one of the effects that it does have is it virtually removes all the visitor parking from the north side of the middle school as well.
So part of the fun of master planning is figuring out the gives and takes. You know, and sometimes we got to show you okay, our mission was, or one of the statements was, how do we get competition baseball back here on the site? It's important to us. What is the impact? You know, and well, that's the impact. And so you guys as a board need to figure out what is your kind of priority as you move forward about the direction you want to take with that. And if there's other means of accommodating it, or you say, you know what, this is important to us and this is what we want to do. So we're showing that as this option because you can always kind of not do it and you still have your parking spaces, but we wanted to make sure you realize that, and this is like that key one where I said the road takes a funny little bend, it's to fit that field in at some point. And it shoehorns it in. I mean, there's a sidewalk and the field.
Yeah.
So,
It looks pretty tight.
yeah.
So if we did not do this, would the road still have to take that little bend? So those would be all those things that we, right.
You could avoid that if the direction was we are never going to do this, then right, we could kind of straighten some things out, maybe make the parking work a little better. Those are things that could be considered, but we want you to be able to kind of be able to make the decision about that as a understanding the impact on the future of what you decide to do with the site.
There was a great deal of consternation when the board decided to, when we added the gym addition to the high school, which necessitated the removal of the baseball field to the east side of town. And at that time, the baseball proponents in town were extremely upset, and felt that by moving the baseball field off campus, that far off campus, that baseball games were less attended, people less inclined to be part of the team, makes practice difficult because you've got to transport the players after school every day to the Prairie site to practice, and so we were shocked that we even had the ability to perhaps think about moving the baseball field back. So this plan allows for it to happen, should we ever decide to do that.
And putting the ball field there is actually eliminating the practice field for football players, or are we gonna start moving them onto our artificial turf for practice?
That is another one of those.
Good point.
That's one of
Give
those,
takes.
yeah.
Give and take, yeah.
To be continued.
But Randy, do they practice ever on the soccer field? No.
No?
Yes.
Yes, I thought.
On the soccer field?
Mhm.
Turf? At each?
No, okay.
So I know this is also.
Oftentimes when a soccer game is taking part in the big stadium, there's football occurring on the soccer field. They practice JV sometimes. And, if we put on our crystal ball, how much longer is football going to be around? So,
If you figure that out, let me know.
Yeah. This also has effect with, I know the middle school PE does use that field for
Yeah,
north
I
as
mean,
well.
We lose the field for PE, yeah.
I mean, that's not saying
Middle
they can't
school.
use the outfield for this for PE, but it is,
No, high
That's
school uses
important
it
for
too.
everybody to hear.
They use it. in
We
high
we can
school.
design this so that PE can take place in the outfields. There's nothing that says that PE can't happen in the outfields of the baseball fields. Actually, it occurs now in the softball
Sure.
and
Right.
the JV baseball field. PE takes place there all the time in the outfields.
And then lastly, on the phasing portion is bringing up the softball to a sectional grade field. So they have all the same amenities as a sectional grade baseball facility, just as softball now. So the footprint is slightly shifted to account for the realignment of onto Broadway, as was previously done. But this now has both competition baseball and competition softball on your single lot.
So when you guys talked to us about both of these, softball and baseball, did you say something about like foul balls are now going? I mean, what does that look like when a ball is hit?
So it'd be similar to like going through a driving range. They have the huge poles with netting going across. So those would be provided as well throughout, and they'd be to the west of the softball and to the southwest of the baseball, to the south of the baseball field as well, to stop balls. You're gonna get the high foul ball that does go and potentially hits a car. But that's there's
Part
unless
of
you
the
put a
challenge
dome-
of being in the middle of, the area here.
Yeah.
So,
I just wanted you to share that, because I
Sure.
know you shared that with us.
it's something to be
so-
aware of.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the just pretend brick that's built up there. Is there any type of concession stand or storage there?
Yes, so what you'll
Or
see
bathrooms?
directly to about the middle of the south of the softball field, there is kind of a gray area. So that would be a centralized area where it could be outdoor storage, bathrooms, some concessions in there as well.
So it's right near the turnabout in the middle. It's a funny shaped gray triangle or rectangle.
I don't know if there's a mouse that shows up on the screen.
Yeah, right there, yeah.
Over in that way, okay. Is that the field house then? Or magic field house that you talked about?
No field house.
No.
No.
This costs $3 million.
Oh, wow.
Small court. So kind of recapping for all the options provided for the north, I do want to emphasize that number that you see right there, those are in today's dollars.
Yeah.
So if we do phase this over several years, those dollars will be escalated. I also want to mention that a question was asked, like timelines of construction. So it's nothing unlike what you've been going for the last several years. Really, for the larger projects, we're limited to your summer, 2.5, 2 months, 3 months timeframes. For some of the smaller options, yeah, we can carry that during into the school session before or after. But really, for the main portions, we want to get it in the day the students leave and get it finished. Hopefully a couple of days before the students come back. But we understand how construction season occurs.
Yeah, and I will be looking, as you move forward, we'll be looking at what can we potentially do a month before school's out. Is there some realignments? If there's utilities that need to be handled, is there, keeping the old road coming across and starting to work on the north part? Maybe there's some things to just kind of buy a little extra time. But it's a significant kind of impact to this north side of the campus. So we're keenly aware of the time constraints associated with school's construction. So.
Yeah, I think that would impact the summer school planning too, for the admin to
Yep.
be able to work on that, because we have such a short, limited amount of time,
Yes.
so, yeah, but it's very important work, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, a lot of planning, definitely.
Yeah, there will be as much planning on the administrative side as there will be on the construction side, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have other entrances that we
Mhm.
can,
Yeah.
for summer school and things like that, staging.
Yeah, and some of these activities could be phased such that we do figure out what entries are going to be used. And the next several slides go into the options where they can be basically constructed without something else happening before it, or this could be before something else. So we know being a landlocked campus, there's not really much room for expansion to the buildings. So these two options are basically enclosing the two courtyards within the middle school area. So one of those discussions was increasing your science, technology, engineering, arts, and math programs, providing some flexible spaces. Now, these are indicated currently as single level spaces, but high atrium-like spaces within it with clear story windows. So you would get natural light into these spaces, and then once again into the spaces that are surrounding these areas, but they could be used as breakout spaces for those classrooms that are bordering these atriums, these courtyards right now. So.
And could these spaces be used year-round, or are these kind of three-season room? I mean.
They'd be used year-round, so they would be properly ventilated, cooled, heated, for whatever activity that you would like to desire to go in. And they would not have the grass or gravel area. They would be fully enclosed, flooring, concrete slab, whatever finish we desire to put in those spaces.
Yeah, turned into complete indoor environments, just with kind of two-story kind of lofted feel inside of it, and using, like he said, the kind of clear story lighting, which runs around the top of a popped roof port to be able to get some lighting in, so those ancillary spaces on the second floor that have windows that would now be looking in could pick up some lighting from that, so they don't lose as much of the natural lighting by enclosing the atrium. It's a creative way of kind of tackling it when effectively you're grabbing a lot of square footage by putting a roof over something. You know.
So the feeling of these spaces might be something not too unlike the commons at the high school.
Gotcha, okay.
We likely would not have the tiered seating in that area due to the surrounding spaces are all on a single level, but just it could have that kind of a feel.
Yeah.
This also resolves the crappy windows that are currently there that leak, and the metal walls that freezes or in the winter, and the metal transmits heat and cold. So the current exterior walls that surround those courtyards are not our finest.
Yeah, architecture.
I don't think I'm allowed to say crappy windows, so.
Yeah.
Thank you,
John can.
Yeah, John can.
They're old-fashioned single-pane windows from the 1950s.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're ironically the windows we only put on the inside now. You know, so to your point.
Well, and it's a maintenance, I mean, you know, like for the staff, you know, and students, and just
Yeah.
trying to keep those areas maintained.
Mhm.
It's really difficult, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Next section would be kind of enclosing the service courtyard that is directly to the south of the kitchen area, that access. I know there's some galvanized chain link fencing that has been provided temporarily. This would basically fully enclose that area with masonry that would match that area. We'd also provide some upgrades to the current masonry portion of the southwest there that would kind of mimic the rest of the building, do some strategic staining to the brick so it would look like it was meant to be there all from the beginning.
So Brenda, this is yeah, I could tell you were asking. So the door that they use to take the deliveries into the kitchen, this, and where those dumpsters are, it kind of
Right.
builds out a enclosure, to kind of, like they say, to hardscape it.
Yeah.
We are,
Clean up a
Corey
bit of
already
an
mentioned,
eyesore.
Randy, you've already added, what have you guys already added to that, like a fencing?
We used to do chain link.
Chain
fence
link.
around it,
Use your mic.
slats.
We just did a chain link fencing around it with some privacy slats in between the chain link, just to kind of hide the dumpsters a little bit.
So it looks a little bit better,
Yeah.
but this makes it look
That's
a whole
great.
lot better,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is open air, so there is no roof on there. It
Right.
just-
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably the largest ticket item on the master plan would be enclosing an area between the high school and middle school and providing a streetscaping to the north that leads into the school. So this is one of the areas that would provide like overflow from your cafetorium at the middle school. Also could provide for various number of public activities. It would provide activities for before and after your football games or your soccer games. Boosters could use it. This is virtually limitless for how the space could be used. One of our earlier presentations, we did show a precedence of something similar that we provided at another one of our clients that had tiered seating in the space. Also, a lot of hard surfaces in here, so I won't say virtually maintenance free, but it is maintenance less.
Yeah.
I guess that's
Maintenance light.
Maintenance light. So, I do also want to bring your attention to the middle is one of the vertical bicycle storage that is covered. So we have a couple more of those throughout the rest of the site as well. So I know being urban campus here with a lot of people that do bike within the city here, we don't have a lot of opportunities to properly restore a bike, and this would get out of vertical precipitation as well. And the students love this for the project that we have done recently.
Yeah, the thing that it gives is, it's a nice kind of transitory space. So it transitions between, lunches or elements. People find really interesting and fun ways of using this space from a kind of a operational and an educational point of view. I mean, it's for like a kind of a bang for your buck. I mean, I know it's expensive, don't get me wrong, but, it's got a huge amount of potential, especially given that it kind of, it balances and it sits right between the high school and the middle school, and it gives you some good opportunities, I think, potentially to kind of investigate your ability to kind of extend or maybe adjust some lunch sessions. We talked about that in the past, just to kind of allow some breakout to keep kids from having to feel like they got to leave campus, but they got an area they can go to. Lots of things you guys can look at for that, for whatever works for you.
And I'm trying to figure out what would be the loss of using the space that you've carved out for this atrium? I mean, what won't we be able to do? Does that eliminate a walk space? I mean, I'm not really good at these aerial photographs.
Sure. Right
So-
now, there is an alleyway that goes between the two spaces. There is access road that does access the Quack Center to the west, and also encloses some of the egress paths from the cafeteria on the east at the middle school. So those are going to be closed. We would not ruin any egress paths as far as the ROE is concerned, or the states are concerned as
Okay.
well.
But moving between the middle school and high school, people would have to do a roundabout or something.
If the doors were locked and, after hours, yeah, you'd have to go around. But
Uh-huh.
I think right now, the concept is still, you would still kind of maintain security at each building's face.
Uh-huh.
And you would control which side used it when, and then if you needed to for sports activities or whatever else, you could allow access through there. Because one of the things Corey was talking about with the low maintenance is picking materials and finishes that are not subject to people messing it up, and then you could kind of open the doors and just allow it to be almost like a covered outdoor walkway type space.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
So like, a lot of people, when we have football games, tend to park in the middle school parking lot and
Right.
walk through.
Right.
So if we unlock those, at 6:30, people could still avoid traffic, park over there, and still walk through there to get
Yes.
to the high
Right.
school.
Yeah, and it's a fairly wide area, but I mean, if you think about it, like, what could you do? Could boosters be in there undercover and sell, T-shirts and whatever else that you might want to kind of take advantage of that kind of Main Street concept?
Gotcha.
Our
So-
band could do like a promenade.
I
like the
Absolutely.
March Illini.
Or-
You could have like a little walk. They could walk.
Yeah, no, that's right, uh-huh.
I was actually thinking about when the middle school band joins the marching band at the high school
Uh-huh.
for,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the football game.
Well, or more importantly, too, it opens up the doors for student activities before or after the games in a sheltered lit spot.
Yeah, 'cause I know there are security concerns at night through that area as well. I know there's a couple of spotlights that go in the areas, but this kind of brightens up that whole pathway now. And there wouldn't just be like door on either side, north or south of this. There would be the option that the whole space could be opened up and then closed.
Sliding wall,
Yes.
Like the, yeah.
big sliding glass wall. Don't want to overlook that we are currently encountering issues with the cafeteria at the middle school, and this allows for open space. I know you guys talked about the fact that when you'd done this before, it was in the Chicago area, and this was not heated space. But the kids used it anyway. They just put on jackets. By the time you close the glass doors and have it roofed in and stuff, it's going to be warmer than outside. But it might not be 70 degrees. It might be 55 or 50 degrees. But that doesn't seem to dissuade the teens at all from using the space. So it's a space where we could control. It's controlled, and kids can use it. If the cafeterium's full, just go outside and sit outside in this space.
Kind of outside, yeah. And the acoustics would be better than the cafetorium? I mean, it wouldn't be so bouncy as...
Yeah, it would be one of the things we'd focus on. You know, it's a big lofted vault space, but the one at Evanston is not a problem at all. And it's bounded on 3 sides. It was originally a really long, kind of narrow, kind of alleyway in between 2 buildings that ended, so like a dead end. And so we covered over the top of that, put some doors in, did a number of other things for that. But it like you said, it kind of became a space that kids could feel like they kind of got off campus, you know, but didn't really get off campus, you know. So it lets them not have to hang out in the cafetorium, but they can go outside a little bit and still be monitored, and you can keep the doors kind of controlled if you needed to.
So you have something like this at the Evanston High School?
That is correct.
Township High School?
Yep.
Okay. Any school closer than Evanston that has something like that? Just out of curiosity.
Really, no.
Okay.
Not one that we've done.
Road trip.
Yeah.
Road trip, yeah.
We have done
We
that.
go to
We did with
Evanston,
the
yeah.
aquatic center.
Mhm.
There were 2 cars, or maybe it was 3 cars of us. I went. I was there, Oda
Sure.
went.
Mhm.
Other people went as well to get all the, we stopped at
Crawfordsville, Indiana.
3 different schools just to get ideas. It's doable.
Yeah, I mean, picture won't do anything, actually
No,
being in the
sure.
space and experiencing it, and actually hearing from the kids' perspective, and even the administration perspective, on how it really works.
Yeah,
Another option is the northeast corner of the campus, where Washington and Vine Street is providing some sort of, this is our campus. So, provide LED signage, message board, and kind of provide the same language and piers masonry that we have on the southwest portion of the athletic campus. So kind of completing the whole fencing and the masonry that would enclose the whole campus.
About the high school. So I saw something on 2D, but I don't think it was really built into the plan. And I know you said you take the one out of where that path is going to be.
Yes.
So is there going to be something replaced on that side of the building as well?
So on the west side, that's just going to be relocated to avoid the intersection where the new street curb cut is aligning with Iowa. So we'd have to align that marquee sign
By the
where-
green space, or?
In the green space, it's probably about the big of this table. So it'd be aligned strategically on that side of the building. So this would be brand new.
Yeah, no, I know this part. I just wanted to make sure something was going to be at the high school.
Something staying in
Yes.
the other options.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're not proposing eliminating any current kind of marquee type signage.
Okay.
We'd be moving it.
We're just moving it to get
Yeah.
new things
I
in.
didn't see it in the, you know, how they've got it written here. I don't see it on 2D. It's pictured there, but it's not really written. so.
We'll add a note. We'll add a note when we update this.
Yeah, but this just kind of invites you
Yes.
to, yeah, on the other side, yeah, there
Like,
at
oh, you-
Washington and Vine.
And by the time you get off the highway and come down Vine Street, oh, here we are.
Yep.
finally.
Yeah.
And this, just like you said earlier, sir, is something could be potentially brought in as an ad alternate at another project, just because we didn't make it 2G or whatever we're up to. You know, it's something that we could be looked at.
Or it can be done relatively quickly.
Or you
Yeah.
could do it tomorrow if you really wanted to. Yeah.
This is not very expensive, and
Yeah.
approaching the schools from that corner does not look good.
Yeah. Primarily why we put them in separate kind of numbered categories is because they're not contingent upon anything in the other set from having to be done to do these. So you could put that sign out there and kind of capture that corner, and it's not gonna impact anything you're doing for any of the other master plan components.
So these options were enclosing the areas that are directly underneath the bleachers. So as you see, it's our rendition of, on the east side of the bleachers underneath the competition, main bleachers. So it would provide additional storage area, potentially could provide additional concession stands on the west side or even on this side to fully utilize all concessions, since we've heard that the current concession stand does get overloaded. So right now, this space where we show the masonry and the siding above, that is open space with chain link fencing. So this is just one option that it could be.
And everything that we still store right now in the chain link, we would just store it
It'd be
as
underneath,
enclosed.
yes.
Right.
There's a couple of pods. There's a couple of pods that are already enclosed in the middle by the elevator.
Yes.
And
That's what I
this,
was thinking.
well, a couple of them, but then they're still open.
Yeah,
There's one,
we
two,
saw those.
three, I think
Four.
3 or maybe 4 sections that are not closed in yet. I think the issue of concessions is fairly important, because when we first built the new concession stand, we anticipated all 4 windows being used.
Right.
But the actual practice of using it now is the south windows are used on the soccer field, and only the north windows are used on the stadium field. And it is insufficient. The lines are,
Who would have thought?
the lines are horrible, and we don't even draw a full crowd yet for football. But if we ever did draw a full, like having sectional
Having a
events or
sectional tournament or
anything like that,
something.
the concession stand is just inadequate.
And again, this is the menu of options with pricing as it is in today's dollars. And everyone likes to go to the bottom line for everything all together.
One of the things that I was has been working with Corey and others in our office on this is the neat thing that I really like about this is, while this is solving problems, you know, it's also creating spaces. So it's creating interesting kind of outdoor spaces that'll kind of benefit the campus feel. It'll show kind of a sense of pride of place, you know, which also helps for, you know, like talking about letting the kids tag an area first, but it's also allowing them to show some ownership and kind of extend it, that the walls of the school are not just the end, it's this kind of whole campus, and showing that as a kind of a part of the kind of neighborhood and the environment that you're in. And kind of shows a lot of care on that as well, that you're trying to address parking issues and alignment issues. And there's some really important things that are happening on the roadways, on picking up Broadway and on realigning to a few of the other roads that will kind of help clean up and solve the problems, but also create a better and safer environment for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned parking several times, but just the traffic flow issues, you know,
Yeah.
when we were talking with you guys on the phone, I shared, as someone who drops a kid off there every single morning, we are just so thankful and blessed that we have not had a student hit, you know, but either by a bus or a car or MTD, or, I mean, you know, I'm just thankful every day when I'm over there as I watch the pedestrian traffic, the car traffic, the bus traffic. That is a huge piece of phase one that.
And one of the things we really didn't mention is this truly does separate bus traffic
Yep.
from parent traffic, from even providing sidewalks for pedestrian traffic as well.
One of
And
the
also,
things, sorry, you can go.
yeah, also, I don't want to, we cannot overstate the safety improvements related to a soft hardening of the school in terms of some of the safety issues that we at schools now have to face and have to deal with. The north improvements, I know the most expensive part of that is the new roadway, but that opens the door for us to better prepare our school for the safety issues that we now confront without making the school look like an armed camp.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because the way you've designed this looks beautiful, I think, and I really appreciate all the safeties, and I don't really want to say barriers, but yet maybe levels is a better word.
That's a good way to put it.
Because it's something that's well needed, and I really like the concept, so thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other,
Other questions? Board members? Peggy? You look like you have a
Mostly
question.
just sort of a general, how do we, I mean, I know there was a process of gathering sort of highest priorities from teachers and administrators and students in the community, and I know addressing the vehicular access was a top priority overall, but underneath that umbrella, did other things arrive from that, from those survey focus groups as, this is what we, as a school community, want to happen next after you improve the traffic issues?
I'm gonna let Paul,
Do you remember?
I have
The traffic issues were absolutely at the top, and then adding outdoor education spaces was down a little bit from that.
Across all groups?
Yeah, across the groups. The field house, I think, while really the principals at the time were really excited about it, that was really about it. The community didn't latch on to that.
so I can read the list, Peggy, if you like. Would you like me to read what? So traffic flow and parking at Urbana High School and Urbana Middle, the inclusion of a field house that would be used by both UMS and UHS, which I think you guys have talked about costs with that. Outdoor educational opportunities, exploring possible spaces for science, technology, engineering, art, and math, STEAM labs, additional flexible spaces, and then that last bullet just says other issues raised by the stakeholders. But I think
Yeah, I mean, the facilities committee also talked about stuff doing it inside the building, not just on the exterior here, as part of the campus plan. So there's other, work we could do with regards to interior planning.
Yeah. So the baseball and softball diamonds weren't raised by the community, the administrators, by students, or, okay. Just, I didn't think so, but it's been a while since we talked about those priors. Because really, almost everything falls under the category of outdoor educational opportunities, STEAM, and flexible spaces. I mean, you guys did a wonderful job of doing that, so.
And I think Randy and I have talked to Park District a little bit, so I think if we decided not to move forward with, what was it, 4 and 5 baseball and softball, I think we could continue to work with them around some of our baseball needs, and possibly softball too.
Yeah, I think the importance was to put the road in. Don't put the road in a way that permanently prevents you from ever doing anything with that space.
That makes sense.
And the fact that as we were working our way through that, we were told, oh, no, you can probably fit a baseball field in there if you do the road exactly right. Are you kidding me? Well, then let's at least build the road that way, and then, who knows, 10 years from now, some people may suggest bringing the baseball field back, as they did 10 years ago, when they desperately wanted the baseball field back. We've de-emphasized our baseball program to the point where the community feeling about baseball is not what it was 10 years ago. So don't build the road that then you'd have to go back and reroute the road in order to bring the baseball field in. You don't want to do that. So, and if the baseball field is not there, the way the road is designed, actually you would just change the entrance into the parking lot that is currently there for the middle school, and from the north end of the parking area to the south end of the parking area. And I also don't want to overlook, this also intends to try to integrate our campus a little bit more into the surrounding street network so that perhaps we can work with the city to get a little bit better traffic control. In the morning, it's nigh on to impossible to get through the corner of Vine and Washington. And it's double impossible to get in to drop your children off safely there at the main entrance to the middle school and get out.
Once you're in, you're trapped.
Yeah.
Getting out is the problem.
Yeah, and so moving it away from the four-way stop at Washington and Vine actually makes it a little easier to deal with the traffic patterns and open the door maybe a little bit to allowing us to get in and out of that parking lot. Because right now, part of the problem is you're too close to Washington Street and the traffic backs up at the four-way stop at Washington and Vine, makes access to the middle school parking lot extremely difficult. Extremely difficult.
Maybe it's time that Urbana did another traffic study for that intersection, because years ago, the infrastructure is there for lights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's
we were just
there.
saying
It was a
that.
plan for in the future, when things started to get a little thicker right there, and maybe now is the time.
The neighborhood objected, maybe they would think differently now, but,
As
and it's
part
a
of this,
cost
oh,
of
sorry.
$400,000 to put in traffic signals there too.
As part of the study, we did bring on a traffic engineer that did count for all the access points that they currently sit. And as any of these progress, we bring them back on board to see, okay, if we do this, what effect does it really have? So we could plan it in advance as opposed to, and we work with the city as opposed to doing something and then reacting. So maybe some of these improvements does warrant a light at Washington Vine. Maybe some of these improvements does warrant a light at Broadway or at the Race or at Iowa or Fairlawn.
This is Urbana, they may suggest stop signs.
Right.
But even adding a four-way stop at Fairlawn would make a huge difference.
Yes.
If it was a full intersection. If it was a full intersection.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's another thing I want to emphasize. All these street accesses are at true four-ways. There's no misalignments.
Well, and I think, and I don't, you probably said this too, Corey, but, you know, that you can only enter from Race. And when you get into that, that pathway, there is no,
Yeah.
you're coming in and you're going all the way out, or you're going around the bout and you're going out on Washington.
That is correct. So from the west, it is only inbound onto the Serpentine Road.
Well, two ways in.
A
The-
car lane
off
and a
of,
bus.
And then off
yeah,
of
there,
Race
where
to
you
the north
got your
as well.
cursor now.
Yep.
Two ways in and two ways out.
Yes.
And so cars would be using that others like the way he's showing it. So cars would go out and the buses would go out through Fairlawn.
So it'd be clear traffic direction as opposed to what is currently there.
Yes.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You guys did a fantastic job.
Yeah,
Really-
no, you did a
really
wonderful job.
appreciated working with you guys.
No, you as well.
It's been fun.
So our next steps
Next step is for the.
is up to us.
Yeah, I'm gonna have.
Okay, so the
we'll
ball's in
make a
our
few
court.
notes, we'll tweak a few words, but after that.
That's what I thought. I was just making sure the ball's in our court
Yeah.
as a board from here on as to how we work this out, and, where we put this in our list of priorities for the available money that we have.
One thing that I would like to ask you guys is to go back and really rework 2B. I
Yeah.
know the secure door 1 came up
Yeah.
in our
Yep.
conversation, but if you could, just get a rendering for that and
Sure.
some monies and.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be, that is a huge opportunity for us for security that,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was a good idea.
And the health center piece too. I know that wasn't in
Sure.
the drawings, but those would be the two pieces that we could look at again, but.
So John,
Great.
when will we have a conversation about, I mean, when do you, what do you anticipate us having the conversation about how we use our dollars for this project versus other projects?
I think when we get done with tonight's agenda, we're going to have all the menu items in front of us.
I mean, with the
And
Thomas
then
Paine
perhaps in
discussion?
a couple of months, we would be ready to sit down, or maybe as early as 30 to 60 days from now, I think. We would have an opportunity to sit down and work our way through this.
And so Carol, show
Okay.
your, I didn't bring mine in here with
I know.
me, your budget sheet, do you have it with you? So last time,
Yeah, she gave us.
yes, so when we met last time and we talked about facilities and Wiley and Thomas Paine and in preparation for this presentation coming, you guys all got a copy of that. We can give you another one.
That's right.
But that at least gives you a little bit of our budget picture now.
That's right.
And then we can talk about more.
9 to
detail.
13 million of my recollection from existing online.
Yeah.
9 to 13 million, that was the range, 9 to 12, 9 to 13.
Turn your mic on.
Yes.
That's right.
If you use a rolling working cash, it's 6.5 to 19 million.
Okay. All right. I think we're ready to go on to the next one, which is
Thank
part of this
you.
discussion.
Thank you
So
very
Thank you
much.
very
Very
much.
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming down from Chicago. Okay, our next administrative report is our Thomas Paine project update. And for this, we've got Riley here this evening. Do you have
Hi,
anything?
Riley.
Good
Yes,
evening,
so-
everybody.
Hey.
Good
So-
to be here.
Thank you, Riley. So as we mentioned last week, Riley was not able to, not last week, at our last meeting, in our study session, Riley wasn't able to be here when we talked a little bit about the priorities for the facilities, the last facilities committee, and prioritizing. Their number one priority was that we finish both of our elementaries. And because we'd had some very early concept work done for Thomas Paine, and we know we've got some asbestos issues at Wiley. Of course, Thomas Paine was our next school that we decided to start the process. And as I shared, I've already been working with Ms. Lloyd, and Riley's going to share a little bit about the timeline and some of those early designs. So turn it over to Riley.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's nice to be here and see familiar faces. Hi, Tori. I'm Riley. So I think tonight is, the Thomas Paine discussion is going to be to refamiliarize ourselves with that project, which has been called Thomas Paine Expansion Renovation. I intend to review some determinations or things we've said previously, and then just outline steps moving forward. And I would suggest that we ask questions along the way, too, on this one. Let me make sure I understand how to operate.
I think you just scroll up,
Just,
on the mouse pad. We lost Lori. Oh, Lori, can you show Riley where to scroll up? Oh, Corey's got it.
I should use the down button.
oh, okay. Oh, yeah, this PDF. Gotcha. Okay, so this next slide is,
Oh, you're clicking,
I'm
Riley.
going the wrong way.
Oh, there you go.
Next slide will just serve to orient all of us to the Thomas Paine site. Everybody knows it's east of Philo on East Florida Avenue, and the entry to the site is just ahead of that curve in Florida. The Thomas Paine facility that you see there, I think it's about 43,000 square feet. Part of it was built in, the original building was 1963, and then the addition to the east came along in 1972. This is a recent enough aerial to show the 2015 site access improvement projects that some of you will remember, which involved, it involved a separation of bus and drop-off traffic, and it involved a little bit of a connector. We were working with the Park District on this as well. It involved us providing a walk towards Loman Park. I don't know that they've ever made any further improvements to Loman Park, but we did our part on that one. And I would say, and Randy and I have talked about this just recently, there's some resurfacing yet to be done in that parking area, which I'm sure Randy has talked about before and we'll talk about again. To the immediate west of our site is multifamily residential. To the immediate east is a farmer's field, and already mentioned the Loman Park, so I think everybody's pretty familiar with that site. So our talking about Thomas Paine goes back to 2009. The district started their initiative of new gyms, multipurpose rooms, fine arts classrooms around that point in time, as I recall. And it was at that time that we decided to have an initial meeting with all of the elementary schools and Thomas Paine as well, to talk about that initiative with, well, I think we had engaged the principals at the time and maybe some staff members, ODA at that time, and then I don't know if I think probably, well, facilities obviously, and then architects. Also discussed in that initial meeting were site and building deficiencies that we would like to correct as part of a larger project as well. And that single meeting produced a set of notes that was then used as a basis for the concept plan that you see to the right there. And just to refresh your memory on that, the big blue box was a new gymnasium. The red box was an existing gym converted to a dedicated multipurpose dining room. The green represented the fine arts classrooms. The light blue was entry circulation, and the orange was an expanded kitchen facility. The gray areas, we envisioned at the time a a new driveway coming into a new entrance to that conglomeration of spaces and with some additional parking to it. So that was in 2009. We had all those ideas. Then Carroll sought some qualified school construction bonds. I believe it was for the Yankee Ridge project and the Thomas Paine project in 2016. So to facilitate that request, we updated Thomas Paine. And by the way, I think the QSCB was ultimately unsuccessful, which maybe led us to have to prioritize Yankee Ridge ahead of Thomas Paine at the time. I'm not sure I remember that correctly. But anyway, we updated the preliminary program and the plan and the cost in 2016. You will notice that updated sketch does reflect the 2015 site access improvements that were made, which, by the way, included improving a staff parking lot to the south there. So that really shouldn't be gray in the sketch, noting that. We spent $290,000 on that site project. So the accompanying the QSB was a updated program statement, which read as this. I've highlighted the key components of what we were saying in 2016, that we were going to have a 14,800 square foot addition, housing the classrooms, gym, etc. And we had a better idea at that point in time as to the extent of the renovation of the existing 43,000 square foot building. And I can go through those, or you guys can read those. And then the other component would be the site improvements necessary to support the building improvements on the site. Maybe I should touch on those. The square foot addition was going to house the new gym with a stage, an expanded kitchen, and 7 new classrooms in 2016, 3 of which were the original fine arts classrooms. And then we decided that we wanted to expand the school by 4 classrooms in 2016. I don't remember exactly the logic for that, but that's what we decided. The renovation, the details of the renovation were obviously central air conditioning, which has been a goal for each of the elementaries. Existing windows replaced, similar to what we did at Yankee Ridge. And the existing gym was converted into this multipurpose dining room. And then various other functional deficiencies that we wish to correct as part of the project. We also mentioned that there was life safety work to be done as part of that main project. And in fact, I would note that we have recently deferred roof work at Thomas Paine and the replacement of some rooftop HVAC units, because we saw this project coming along, and for economy of scale, we would incorporate that life safety work into this project. Site improvements are the aforementioned, maybe additional parking for the gym, stage, and just whatever additional walks and drives and utility upgrades necessary, because we're expanding the building. We don't know what those are yet, but. So also accompanying that application, we updated the budget. So the 2009 budget for Thomas Paine, we estimated at $8.64 million. And if you just escalate that to today's dollars, we think we're talking about a $10.6 million project with the same program. And probably you want to know how that was done. And basically, I took the historical annual escalation factor of 3.5% over those 6 years. Now, that's not to say it's accurate yet, and the actual costs that we will face will be dependent on a couple of things. It will be dependent on our planning and design effort, where we say how much we need, as well as during the planning and design, as well as the local market conditions when we did the project. To the right on that slide is the original 2016 summary budget. So moving forward, here's an outline or a summary of the phases of work that we would expect to complete, or that we would go through to complete the Thomas Paine project. The first is the programming and concept planning phase. The programming phase, as most of you know, is identifying or verifying the needs of the project. That would be both the space needs, any functional deficiencies in the existing building that we have to address as part of the project, and any exterior facility support requirements to support the new project, such as parking. If you look to the right-hand side where the arrow is, that's an excerpt out of the old Yankee Ridge program document that sort of said, well, we're targeting whatever the number is, 60,000 square feet as our project. That was the total existing and new building projections for Yankee Ridge. And that formed the basis then for the second phase of phase one, which is the concept planning, where I think most of you will also remember that based on the program, we then explored a number of options, different design options or planning options for how best to redesign Yankee Ridge. And I was thinking about that the other night. I know we started with 6, and then it was hard to get down to 2, and then it was really hard to get down to our final one. So then the second phase of work that we anticipate is the schematic design phase. I should back up here a little bit. As I talk about the future phases of work, and I know Jennifer has told you guys we've put together, or we're starting to form, what we could loosely call as a steering committee, which would be a collection of staff, a principal at the school, the, teachers, facilities staff, and maybe others that we would work with throughout the planning and design of this facility, as well as the Board of Education, who will be in a review and approval capacity at I think at every phase, we'll do that. So phase 2 is the schematic design phase. That's where we have developed consensus on a previous option, and we'll actually take that into a design phase. And that picture down at the bottom, if you recall, that reflected, or that was a kind of a preliminary rendering of the schematic design of Yankee Ridge as we approached the end of the schematic design phase. It has been the typical approach of this board to formally approve a project at the schematic design phase. You will have the design in front of you, you will have a timeline in front of you, and you will have the budget, the estimated budget, total project budget in front of you. And that's sort of, you guys review and approve, and that sets the course for the balance of the project. And we start moving rapidly through the rest of the phases. Third phase is design development phase. That basically brings a lot more detail to the schematic design. It would get more into the architectural, the structural, the mechanical and electrical makeup of the building and the site, for that matter. And again, at the end of design development phase, the board would be updated on the design, as well as we would prepare an updated budget as a checkpoint to see where we are. And it should also be noted, at the end of each phase, the way that we control the scope and the budget is, I mean, we review it, and if we're a little out of sync, we have to make some adjustments in scope, or if we're on budget or below budget, we have the opportunity to maybe raise quality or increase the scope of the project, if that makes sense. So when you get to phase 4, it's the construction or the contract documents phase. That's where we translate all of the design information into the language of the contractor, and basically that ends up as the bidding documents that we issue for bid. And again, you will have a chance to review the design, the schedule, and the budget again at the end of that phase. And if it's all okay, we issue for bid. So phase 5 is the bidding and the contract award. That's probably a month's worth of, we issue the drawings and specifications for bid, probably a month. We receive the bids, and then we have a chance to review the bids. It comes before you guys, hopefully for approval. And then there's a period of contractor mobilization before we move to phase 6, which is the actual construction phase on the project. Here's a slide that I told Jennifer I thought was pretty dry when I prepared it for her, but she thought it was still important. Since we're getting close to potentially starting the programming and concept planning phase, the first phase of work, this gives you some idea of what the objectives of that phase are and some of the tasks that are going to be done. So phase 1, program development, I'm just going to read these out loud and we can talk about it. To fully understand existing Thomas Paine operations, facilities, and deficiencies, and identify current and projected functional space requirements. In other words, providing the needs that require response in the subsequent phase of planning, which is the phase 2. Concept planning, to provide comparative conceptual analyses of expansion and renovation options for improving Thomas Paine, as well as developing getting close to a timeline and an estimated budget. Phase 1 tasks, real quickly: kickoff meeting, collect and review all of the information necessary to do the project, We'll do a visual survey analysis of the existing building, become very familiar with what those deficiencies are. And then the extremely important part of phase one are the interviews that we'll conduct at the school with the teachers, the principals, and staff to help us develop the space needs and priorities, probably. That ends up with this component space program document. We do an early code check against what's wanted, needed. We review and establish the exterior support requirements that I've talked about before, and we review and establish the parking needs. And because there's several meetings over a relatively short period of time, there's a lot of coordination between the architect and the school district during this process. Then concept planning, develop options, review the options till we get to a preferred direction, develop consensus, and then develop and review a preliminary project budget for the preferred option, develop an implementation schedule, prepare and present the final documents to this body, and get an approval on the program and concept planning stage. So a very early timeline for this project based on the phases that we have to move through. We're thinking that the program and concept planning phase would be about 3 months if we, and this is based on the potential of starting this process in March of this year. So 3 months for the program concept planning phase. The design phase, approximately 7 months. Back to programming, March through May. Design phase, June through December of 2020, 7 months. We get through the SDDD and CD phase in those 7 months. So we have pretty much designed the new facility by the end of this year. We would issue for bid in January and get bids approved and contractor mobilized by, say, March, a 3-month period. And then along comes construction. This construction is estimated to start in the spring of '21 and complete in July of '22, 16 months. If you recall Yankee Ridge, we almost did Yankee Ridge. We did Yankee Ridge similar to this time frame. We started in a spring. We utilized a first summer for renovation. We utilized the school year for continuing the addition and very selective renovation in the facility because it's occupied throughout. And then the final summer we finished up renovation. And thinking that probably is a similar pathway for Thomas Paine. So my goal would be to finish Thomas Paine truly in a July, because the district needs a full month to get accustomed to their new facility. And I know Yankee Ridge kind of extended beyond that, and that it's not pleasant. Yeah, because there is the assumption that school is going to continue while this project is, school at Thomas Paine is going to continue while this project is going on. And in fact, that drives this 16-month construction schedule. Now, it sounds silly, but if you could take everybody out, you could get it done much faster. But that's never been a serious option for us, and I don't think it still is. So that facility would be ready for reoccupancy for the fall of 2022. So that gives you an overview of where we've been and where I think we're going. Lori, if we want to talk about
Any,
Oh, I was just gonna ask you that, right?
there's
Any questions for Riley from the board?
My
This
question
is-
is probably for Riley than for us. You know, even though as part of these conversations, I don't recall how we came to the decision to have 3 additional classrooms, or 4 additional classrooms at Thomas Paine. Okay, I mean, I remembered everything else, the fine arts and the multipurpose and all that, but I don't remember the rationale we had for adding 4 new classrooms. I know with Yankee Ridge, we talked about adding a 3rd strand, and the French dual language, and that kind of drove that additional, but I don't remember, you know, this was some years ago, but does anyone recall what drove the 4 new classrooms in addition to the fine arts?
I don't.
Okay, well, whether or not we had a good reason then or not, since we can't recall, is there a good reason today for that?
Well, I think definitely today, because we are going to have to relocate Wiley students. So I just did a walkthrough at Thomas Paine today, and right now we have 2 rooms being used for fine arts instead of 3. And if we added 4 additional classrooms, that actually gives us a full strand, a K6 in the event when we have to move, when we have to do the work at Wiley, which might mean we have to shut down Wiley for a certain amount of time. I know we don't have the jewel store and, you know, the things that we used to do. We don't have that staging place, you know, in the event we're not able to do all that asbestos work at Wiley in the summers.
Sure.
So that at least gives us 6 spaces for that, and then we could talk about, you know, other programming needs that we, you know, after, because we would need them to be there for at least a year.
But would that be the only reason? Because
No,
that
well,
seems
I'm
like a
sure
lot
we
of money
can-
to, you know, for,
Right now,
to
we have life
accommodate.
skills classrooms there, and I think there are a lot, I don't know what the conversation was earlier, if nobody remembers,
I don't know,
but
it's pretty bad.
I think
to
it's worthy
Peggy's
of
point, it'd be
discussion.
worth to see what a programming model would look
Yep.
like without the Wiley students. I know the cross-cap program takes a lot of space, like the BD program did at Yankee Ridge. It'd be nice just to see what the proposal would be.
Well, in 2016, they were still using a computer lab, which they're not using anymore, because now we have computers in every classroom. We don't need a separate standalone computer room. So there might be some other,
and I know there was a
Might be able
DL
to
survey.
recapture some space.
Yes, there was a dual language survey. Lupe and I were just going through it today, actually, in 2018, around the amount of, you know, do we expand dual language into another space? Right now, we turn away a lot of families because we have 19 classrooms between, we have 18 now, we will have 19 next year, between, you know, just for Spanish. That's not even including French DL.
Gotcha.
And we turn away a lot of families, so that would be an opportunity if, you know, if we wanted to look at expanding that program.
Gotcha, that would give us the possibility to do that.
That would be a possibility.
Okay, and I know, yeah, we have to think beyond
Yep.
today's
Oh, yeah, yeah,
needs,
yeah.
of course, so,
Yep.
all right.
I'm going to throw a wild thing out there, which is that the governor is discussing a substantial expansion of preschool.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't want to be faced with what we were faced with Yankee Ridge, which was at the last minute an effort to try to shoehorn 2 preschool classrooms into a building that had already been fully programmed. So we probably need to be thinking about how we're going to do that, whether it is a substantial amount of space eventually at Wiley, or how we're going to accommodate. The preschool was built with the concept of being able to add 1 or 2 villages, two villages, which is 8 more preschool classrooms, 4 in each village. So that's a possibility, but that means going back to a relatively new building and spending more millions of dollars to create more space. So
And
I just think that needs to be part of the discussion in the future.
And remind me, I know early on, I remember Chris talking to me about the Yankee Ridge. Were there going to be 2 preschool classrooms at Yankee Ridge?
Yes.
Was that the original plan? Okay.
Yeah.
That was not the original
Well,
plan.
then they went to-
That
That was the discussion.
Well, we were,
That
we
was
had, and then they ended up
discussion.
being.
And there had been some work done
It was for the expansion grant, and then that's why they got put up.
at
King,
King
yeah.
instead. Yep.
Right.
But more of that expansion money is going to be there.
It sure sounds
And
that
right
way,
now,
yeah.
the 2 full-day classrooms, I know there've been more requests for full-day. When I went over and met with, as part of the early childhood principal search, I had a meeting with parents, and one of the parents in that meeting did ask, are we going to be offering more full-day spaces, you know, right now, outside of the King neighborhood and other, so that's
Good to
also
do.
something that I think
That's true.
We
are
currently don't
people's
have the
minds.
classrooms to do that.
Yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
So in an ideal world, that discussion and those decisions would be made during that programming phase.
In the next 3 months.
I realize it sometimes doesn't fall out like that, but
But in the
Here at
next
this
3
level, you
in the
mean, not
next
with the
Yeah.
school team, right?
All right.
So
Any
can
other
I
questions
just
for Riley?
add one thing? So, my goal would be, I know the 3 months, we're gonna look at, I'm gonna get with Riley and get dates really quickly here for that March, April, May programming piece, if you wanna go back to that last slide, Riley.
oh, sorry.
That one. So that first step there, the March, April, May. We have 2 meetings in June, so June 2nd and June 16th. So I'm anticipating, because of the number of meetings we're going to have to get in here pretty quickly, we will meet with that team probably all the way up until the end of the school year. So you guys won't see anything from that programming group until probably either the June 2nd or June 16th meeting.
So I can't remember exact practice, but does that mean we need a proposal, engagement proposal from you
Yep.
for us to act on at the first meeting in March? Sounds to me like.
Yep, no problem. Already working on it.
Okay, so board expect an action item on the March agenda to employ IGW to start to work on the Thomas Paine initiative.
And I know I mentioned at that, I've been also working with the Thomas Paine staff on their principal search. So at a staff meeting with all the staff and at a parent meeting with several parents, this of course came up. So I was very pleased to be able to share with them. So I'm sure many of them are watching, you know, that couldn't be here tonight, that of course are watching this conversation via the television. So I know they were all very, very excited. We got applause in the room in both places when they found out that, I think they knew it was coming. I don't think they knew that we would be moving. I think they still thought they had at least a good year or 2 before anything would happen. So they're really happy at Thomas Paine. I just wanted to share that. But
Let's dig in.
Yeah.
yes.
And so we need to just remind that for our Wiley community,
Yes.
you're also entering into and getting ready, which does not require board approval, but the Jennifer's moving forward with mobilizing the Wiley community to take a look at the future role of Wiley and just exactly what kind of school that will be in the future.
And that will happen, we'll put the committee together probably between now and the end of the year, but that work will happen all next year and give them like the whole fall and basically the school year to look at a lot of different models. So we talked about that at our last meeting, but yes,
Right.
so Dr. Heinhorst is excited about that.
And that committee will be pretty broad-based, so it won't just be Wiley folks. It'll
Oh,
be
yes.
Community
Yep.
People Board,
Yep.
of course, and
Yep.
others. Yeah,
Mhm.
good, thank you.
Which could actually impact Thomas Paine to some extent?
Not a lot.
No? Okay.
You mean, what do you mean? What do
Well,
you
I
mean,
just meant
Ryan?
from, I mean, if Wiley is shifting programmatically in any way, will that cause Thomas Paine to have to include something?
No, so what we're talking about, oh yeah, that's right. I haven't had a chance to brief you on that, but what we're talking about with Wiley is doing some think tank work. Oh yeah, because you and I talked about the think tanking. Yeah, that's your word. And so we'll kind of start that think tank process with them, have them, looking at some different programs to have them become more of a destination location. I know there's another magnet grant that the feds are getting ready to put out again that might open up some dollars for us to be able to look at. They could be some kind of math and science academy or a STEAM academy or whatever, but they're going to do that research, that stakeholder group.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Riley.
We have no public hearing tonight. We have no communications. I already said that. We're ready for action items. So we have a consent agenda this evening, folks, and on that consent agenda, from January 21st business meeting, the February 4th study session, February 5th special meeting, and the February 12th special meeting. We have bills and checks, education fund bills in the amount of $633,000, operations and maintenance fund bills in the amount of $147,000, transportation fund bills in the amount of $181,000, working cash bonds in the amount of $56,000, tort in the amount of $49,000, life safety levy work in the amount of $8,000, payroll of $1.073 million, and Urbana adult education bills in the amount of $112,000. We also have on the consent agenda the resolution authorizing and directing sale or disposal of personal property, which is the cleaning of some library books at King. Any desire to remove any item from the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Carter?
Yes.
Member Exum?
Yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Pulaski?
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. President Bennett?
Yes. Motion is carried. We have just two individual action items this evening. The first is gifts from Markeisha Parker of Danville, donated an office desk, lateral file cabinet, and 2 bookshelves to the district. GI Transit donated $6,500 to Urbana High School basketball team. Gay Roberts of Urbana donated $2,000 to the high school theater program. And Sam Carroll of Urbana donated four cello, bow, and case to the Urbana School District. Motion to approve those gifts,
So
to
moved.
receive those gifts and send thank you notes, sorry.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Urbana cleaning, of course it's Urbana. The cleaning contract renewal. Carol, anything you wish to say about our or Randy?
I guess I don't know really what to say. We, looking to, have ESS continue with their cleaning contract. We've had ESS for 20 years. Haven't had any issues, been pretty happy with them, so I'd like to see us, go forward with this, request.
It's a slight increase according to.
Yeah, the CPI.
CPI
Which is
increase.
at 2.3%. So it'd be 1.245 million, $1,245,915.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please. Any discussion? I'm sorry. Roll call.
Member Carter?
Yes.
Member Exum?
Yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Pulaski?
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. President Bennett?
Yes. Motion is carried. We currently have no call for a future special or exec meeting other than the exec meeting immediately after tonight's meeting. Superintendent's report.
Okay. So this is hot off the press news. I just got this afternoon. I know we talked about Olivia Rosenstein earlier as a National Merit finalist, but we just found out today that she is also one of 26 students in the state who have been named to the IHSA All-State Academic Team. So if you see, we're on the right there, yay. So this recognition is awarded to students that excel in academics while also participating in multiple sports and other activities. So congratulations to Olivia. And I was able to throw this in the slide right before the meeting, but we'll be sharing that information more widely.
Olivia is currently in Mississippi with the Habitat
Yes.
Club. So
I'm going to let you talk about that.
I will.
I'm not going to say a word, but yep, I left it up. So this is just my thank you slide for Winter Institute. In the top left there, we have Todd Whitaker. Dr. Whitaker joined us for most of the day. Ryan Snow there is a certified cannabis. The cannabis sessions were very well attended by everyone, basically. So he's going to also be working with our administrators doing a certified training here in another week or two. On the bottom there, we have Sydney Jensen. She was the Nebraska Teacher of the Year And she came and talked to us about coaching and the culture of coaching and a lot of other, teacher relevant topics. And then this in the right corner is a couple of our own staff members. One, Heather Payne, a social worker from early childhood, and on the right there is Casey Sanders, fifth grade teacher at Thomas Paine. So I just wanted to highlight a little bit and thank everyone again. This was the coldest day of the year, and we had all these people come from like all over the state, and teachers who came out. Some other names: Andre Wicks. He is part of a team that talks about trauma and creating trauma-sensitive classrooms. Karen Sims, a very local person here in the community who talks about trauma. Jill Johnson, you guys might remember, Greg Johnson's wife. She came and did a few sessions from the northern, northwest suburbs of Chicago to talk about classroom management and behavior management. Elaine Schmungen, who we know, did some sessions. Alice Lee from the U of I. Gina Johnson, and then our Robinson Schwartz friends drove up as well. So it was a great day, very cold day. It was a little tricky for some of our staff who didn't find out until that morning that they were not going to have school. So we had some students with us from Champaign to Mahomet because they found out about 6 a.m. that there was no school in those two districts. So a couple of our teachers who were presenting brought their kiddos along because they wanted to make sure they were able to do their presentations. So it was a fun day by all, and a lot of really great professional learning happened. And I just want to say publicly thanking not just our presenters, but the team behind the scenes who kind of pulled this off and put it all together. So it was a great day. I don't know if you got to see the Facebook Live, but I'm going to go back. So this is Todd here in the gym, and we basically had everyone. It was a little like opening day. So we had clerical, custodians, food service. I mean, we just kind of had everyone there, and he talked to all of us about what is most important with our work, and that is our students. So it was really motivating and uplifting. Great day for us, great way for us to start the morning. So this is Radium Girls. I hope all of you got to go. I don't know if you did, but it was really educational. I left that and did all kinds of research about it. Now I'm going to read the book. This is just a couple pictures of our students. It was just a great job. So I did want to recognize Mrs. Pavlakis was the director for this, and of course Mr. Broker and the theater production people. It was just another phenomenal performance. So, and then Winter Color Guard, we just found out they made it to state. While they didn't win this year as they have in the past, they placed 6th. But we did just want to recognize this group. They put in a lot of hard work and effort throughout the season. So congratulations to them on a great culminating state performance this past Saturday. And the UHS Jazz Band. The UHS Jazz Band placed 3rd in the EIU Jazz Festival and on February 8th. So congratulations to them as well. So that is it. I'll read that. So Smart Procure, purchase order number, purchase dates, line item quality, line item price, and vendor item numbers for purchase orders that that has been satisfied, right, Lori? Illinois Retired Teachers Association, the name and email address of any certified staff who are retiring this year. And then this Penn State, we've seen this before, school attendance zone study. So the current attendance boundary areas and then the years listed there that they requested. Those have all been satisfied.
Okay. Board reports.
I just have a short thing that's really less of a report and more of a reaction or response to the LUDA notes that Jennifer sent out to us, and you often do. I always appreciate those. But the most recent one that you sent out last week had a link to a piece from the NEA and the AFT, the nation's two largest teachers unions, which called on districts to end active shooter drills that simulate gun violence, which they say causes more harm than help, more trauma and harm. And they recommend, the two national teachers associations recommend that districts focus on training teachers to respond to active shooter drills rather than drilling students. And I support this recommendation and hope that our district will review and consider our active shooter practices in light of the two teacher associations' recommendations. So.
Just had a quick thing also. I'm very excited that the Illini Division dinner meeting is going to take place here in Urbana on February 25th. This is through the Illinois Association of School Boards, and it's very informative. I'm happy to have it in our district.
I had the pleasure of joining the Urbana High School Habitat Club in Mississippi. They're still there. They won't be back until tomorrow night, but I had the pleasure of spending 2 days with them, working on the house and visiting the courthouse where the Emmett Till murder case was tried. And the location they're at is in the same county and just 7 or 8 miles from the courthouse. It's 5 teachers, and I think it's 22 or 23 high schoolers that are part of the group. I know we'll get a full report from them when they get back, but and that I encourage them to continue that practice of reporting it. But the last night I was there, we had the pleasure of going to downtown Clarksdale, Mississippi, which is real close by. We had a cafe to ourselves with the resident musician, blues musician, who put on a seminar about the history of the blues, and he is one of 5 nominees for bluesman of the year for his music that he's doing, and it was really cool, which ended up with a trip out to the cemetery at the Crossroads. And so if any of you know anything about blues music, we weren't there at midnight, but it was close. He did a little thing about being there on midnight and striking his deal with the devil for his music, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to their report. And I surprised him with giving my closing reflections as started to try to do a blues song, which without instrumental accompaniment is really, really bad. And I was really, really bad. So, but anyway, it was a lot of fun.
So we'll work with Mr. Foley and the team, either March 3rd, or we already have some study sessions planned for March 3rd from the CTE folks. But if he's available that night, we'll either do the 3rd or the 10th.
It'll take him a while to get the group together
Yep.
and get the report put
Yeah,
together.
let's keep in mind our time too for our meetings, please. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, with that, any other board reports? I think we're ready to move into exec session. I'll read the pertinent sections and understand that there'll be no action following the exec session. So we're basically getting ready to adjourn the public portion of our meeting for the exec session. Purpose of the exec session is collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. That's the first. Second, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the district, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. And third, litigation, when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular district has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the district finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the closing meeting minutes. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Carter?
Yes.
Member Exum?
Yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Pulaski?
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. President Dona?
Yes. Motion is carried. We're adjourning to exec session. This closes the public portion of our meeting. Thank you. No action afterwards.